Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents White Flight, Atlanta and the Making of Modern Conservatism by Kevin M. Kruse. Narrated by Aaron Williamson. Introduction. In the story spun by its supporters, Atlanta had accomplished the unthinkable. Their city was moving forward, they boasted, not just in its bank accounts and business ledgers, but in the ways the races were learning to live and even thrive together. While the rest of the South spent the postwar decades resisting desegregation with a defiant and often ugly program of massive resistance, Atlanta faced the challenges of the civil rights era with maturity and moderation. During these decades, the city had emerged as a shining example for the New South, a place where economic progress and racial progressivism went hand in hand. This was, to be sure, not an empty boast. By the end of the 1950s, these supporters could point with pride to a litany of sites that the city had desegregated, from public spaces like the buses, airport, libraries, and golf courses, to countless private neighborhoods in between. When Atlanta successfully desegregated its public schools in 1961, even national observers paused to marvel at all the city had accomplished. The city found countless admirers across the country, from the press to the President of the United States. But it was ultimately its own mayor, William Hartsfield, who coined the lasting motto, "Atlanta," he bragged to anyone in earshot, "is the city too busy to hate." Just a year later, this image came crashing down. The trouble surfaced in an unlikely place, a quiet middle-class subdivision of brick ranch houses and loblolly pines called Peyton Forest. And the trouble started in an unlikely way, as city construction crews built a pair of roadblocks on Peyton and Harlan roads. The barriers seemed to have no significance. They were simply wooden beams which had been painted black and white, bolted to steel I-beams, and sunk into the pavement. But their significance lay in their location. As all Atlantans understood, the roadblocks stood at the precise fault line between black and white sections of the city. Over the previous 2 decades, black Atlantans had escaped the overcrowded inner city and purchased more and more homes in neighborhoods to the west. During the same period, white Atlantans to the south had grown increasingly alarmed as those areas went colored. The roadblocks were meant to keep those two communities apart and at peace, but they had the opposite effect. Indeed, the barricades immediately attracted intense national and even international attention. Civil rights activists surrounded the racial buffer zone with picket lines, while wire photos carried the images across the globe, sparking an unprecedented public relations nightmare. "We want no Warsaw Ghetto," read one picket. Another denounced Atlanta's image, a Berlin Wall. Civil rights organizations announced they would launch a boycott against area merchants unless the barriers were removed, and 2 lawsuits were immediately filed in local courts. Mayor Ivan Allen Jr., who had recently replaced Hartsfield in office, had expected some backlash, but was stunned by its intensity. From retirement, his predecessor offered a bit of belated advice. Never make a mistake they can take a picture of. As the national press denounced the Atlanta Wall, local whites embraced the roadblocks as their salvation. The day after the crews sealed off their streets, residents wrapped the barricades in Christmas paper and ribbon. Beneath the words, "Road closed," someone added, "Thank the Lord." Meanwhile, a powerful organization of white homeowners, the Southwest Citizens Association, sought to explain white residents' perspective. President Virgil Copeland, a Lockheed employee, told reporters that the barricades were simply a response to the vicious, block-busting tactics being used by Negro realtors. Carlton Owens, an engineer at Atlantic Steel and a member of Southwest Citizens' board of directors, noted that several residents had said they were going to sell and get out if something concrete were not done to stabilize the situation. The barricades were erected for that purpose, Copeland added, and we think they will do it. All we want to do is to keep our homes. Barbara Rickley, an officer with Southwest Citizens, pointed out that not just Peyton Forest, but all of white Atlanta was endangered by black expansion. If the whites could just win once, she explained, they would have some hope for holding out. I think the whole city of Atlanta is at stake. You realize that every time Negroes replace whites, about 85% of the whites move out of the city? As much as they embrace the Peyton Wall, these whites worried it would not be enough. 2 weeks later, their fears came true. Sources reported that blacks were closing deals on 3 homes on Lyndhurst Drive, immediately west of the Peyton Forest neighborhood. According to alarmist press coverage, the sales represented a deliberate attempt to break through the roadblocks, a flank attack on the all-white neighborhood. If those barricades hadn't been put up, an unnamed Negro leader was quoted as saying, I don't think Lyndhurst would have been bothered. As white residents expressed outrage, black real estate agents claimed the story had been concocted by Southwest Citizens. Soon, this war of words escalated into a pitched battle. Late one Friday night in February, parties unknown descended on the Harlan Road barricade, pulled the I-beams out of the ground, sawed the timbers in half, and tossed the scraps into a nearby creek. The next morning, stunned residents grabbed saws and hand tools, chopped down nearby brush and trees, dragged the debris into the street, and added a few dozen heavy stones for good measure. That night, the raiders returned and set fire to the new barricade. Once firefighters subdued the blaze, Mayor Allen announced that the city would rebuild the barricades, deploring the fact that any group has seen fit to take the law into their own hands. Early Monday morning, construction crews sunk new beams into the scorched asphalt, attaching steel rails this time to prevent further fires. Just to make sure, small groups of robed Klansmen stood guard at the barricades on Monday and Tuesday night. Patrolling the street, they held aloft signs. Whites have rights too. In spite of the movement to ensure its permanence, the Peyton Wall was short-lived. Local courts quickly ruled against the roadblocks, and the mayor, relieved to find a way out of the public relations nightmare, had them immediately removed. But as the barricades were destroyed, so was whites' confidence in the neighborhood. In less than a month, most homes in Peyton Forest, including that of Virgil Copeland, the head of the homeowners' resistance movement, were listed for sale with black real estate agents. When the barricades came down, everything collapsed, he told a reporter. It's all over out there for us. Indeed, by the end of July 1963, all but 15 white families had sold their homes to black buyers and abandoned the neighborhood. They were not simply fleeing Peyton Forest, Copeland pointed out, but the city itself. We are trying to find some area outside the city limits where we can buy homes and get away from the problem of desegregation, he noted. Everybody I know is definitely leaving the city of Atlanta. The Peyton Wall incident, as famous as it was fleeting, was only the most public eruption of the much larger phenomenon of white flight. That year alone, the beleaguered mayor noted, City Hall had been confronted with 52 separate cases of racial transition, incidents in which whites fled from neighborhoods as blacks bought homes there. And although the information never appeared in Atlanta's positive press coverage, a steady stream of white flight had in fact been underway for nearly a decade. During the 5 years before the 1962 Peyton Forest panic, for instance, nearly 30,000 whites had abandoned the city. Afterward, the numbers only grew larger. In 1960, the total white population of Atlanta stood at barely more than 300,000. Over the course of that decade, roughly 60,000 whites fled from Atlanta. During the 1970s, another 100,000 would leave as well. The city too busy to hate, the skeptics noted, had become the city too busy moving to hate.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?